Ready? Councillors and members of the gallery, please note we're about to commence recording this meeting. Your video and audio will be recorded and live streamed from now on, and the video will be available on YouTube after this meeting is finished. Thank you, everyone. I welcome everyone to this meeting, the February meeting of Council. I read the civic affirmation. We gather today to duly and faithfully carry out our duties to the best of our judgment and ability, the advancement of this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. And the Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, the Ngarrindjeri people, whose ancestral lands are on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you. Councillors, I have no apologies. That's good. And at this stage, I have no acknowledgements. So if I move to the next item on the agenda, number 3, is there any declarations of conflict of interest I need to be aware of? Councillor Rountree.
Thank you, Mayor. I will flag that I have a general conflict of interest in a matter listed in the confidential section of our meeting, and that I would outline this conflict later in the agenda.
Certainly, thank you. Anyone else? There being nothing, I move to item 4, confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on the 24th of January. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Rountree.
Also have a question.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Bland. Councillor Rountree, what is your
just
question?
A clarification through you, Mayor, around recording the questions and answers of the elected members raised in relation to information reports. I noticed in the minutes that it didn't really elaborate on some of your questions that we'd asked. Do we need to move, when we're discussing information reports, questions that arise from those reports?
To be recorded.
But it's not in the minutes.
No, but your question is,
Move to be recorded.
do you need to move and second, have someone second it to
when we're discussing information reports? Yes.
the information reports? Ashley, please.
Through the Mayor, those reports are now reports for decisions, so questions and answers are not recorded in the minutes.
That's all.
Thank you.
So Bland, you give me that
I'm just
thinking look.
through you, Mr. Mayor. I just seek clarification on that. But if we then move to, as Councillor Rountree indicated, if there was something specific you would like recorded, you can surely move that way, even in that. I'm just asking clarification, really. I'm not necessarily saying all questions and answers, but maybe specific.
Through the Mayor, you can always move a motion without notice, but it would have to take place after you've considered the item before you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Peach.
Meeting regulations section 9.5 says that a question without notice and the reply will not be entered in the minutes of the relevant meeting unless the members present at the meeting resolve that an entry be made. So if it was a question during a decision report without notice, the members could move so.
You want to go?
So do you put in?
Through the Mayor, a question without notice is different to a question that's raised during the course of the debate for a report or an item that's listed on the agenda. So that's why those questions and answers are not recorded. It's just the record of the decision that's made.
Can we seek further advice on that? Because I acknowledge that there is a section of the agenda called questions without notice. But if a member asks a general question without notice, I would think that we could also follow the same procedure.
We'll seek some more advice, I think.
So through you, Mayor, would it then be more beneficial to have those information reports back in the agenda rather than separate documents? Like, should it then be part of the agenda?
Well, there's a point where does everything be in the minutes? I think that's where your discussion point is. I'll take Councillor Peach's question for some more thought around meeting procedure. But at this stage, if we are in the information document, that's the challenge, why that would be recorded.
Through you, Mayor, I guess I'm looking at I feel that there's some good debate that comes out when we're talking about the information documents, and a lot of good information is there, and I just would like to see that recorded someone. I know we're recorded live and I can go back and listen to it and I could possibly transcribe it myself. I just feel that it would be handy to have some of those things picked up, because there's some really good answers given by people and it would be useful to have it picked up. But anyway, I don't know how to resolve the issue, so.
We'll do a bit more work on it for you, councillors. Anything else in relation to the minutes and the confirmation thereof? There being nothing, you'll close.
Yes.
So I put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Adjourned business item 5, there is nil. Item 6, reports by members. Councillors, my report of meetings attended is there. Is any questions? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. January the 18th, introductory meeting with the CEO and Deputy Premier Susan Close, Tyler Bend.
Yes.
Yes.
Probably an hour or so here in this chamber. We probably discussed probably two things, the visitor plan for that Ju's got around the Coorong National Park. She's the minister responsible for that.
Right.
And East Wellington Water, because she's also the minister responsible for SA Water. So they were the two that we probably encourage some further action on.
Good.
And yeah,
Thank
and
you.
roads.
Yeah, thank you.
And roads. Councillor Bland.
Mr. Mayor, just an update really on your meeting in relation to the Canalpin School.
So thank you. There's a process in place and it's open for public consultation right now and for another week, I believe it's from the 13th till whatever 2 weeks is from
Friday
the
this week.
Friday this week, this is a departmental led process, formal process of the Education Department, and I'm council's nominee. So I'd urge people in the next few days to get in, and we have got the connection with whoever in the department has, in Murray Bridge office has got the forms or the response systems. I understand it may have not been circulated in Canalpin as much as some might like, but nonetheless, this process will go forward from there. And the committee will then review all the submissions around the two principal questions around the educational requirements at Canalpin, and if the school was to close, any particular, I suppose, options for the site. Is the two principal questions. We need to focus on what's the best educational outcome for the children of that particular area. You've got another question?
Just, no, it's probably a bit premature. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming to the Australia Day events. That was all very pleasant this year. Run very smoothly by the staff. Thank you to everyone concerned. And I would just tell councillors I spent last Friday and Saturday at a mayor's educational function in Adelaide at LGA run. Okay. There's nothing else. There's no other reports from any other councillors, I don't believe. Nil. We ask you to report every 3 months as councillors, basically. Item 7, petitions. I have none. This leads me to deputations. So, Pauline Merritt, deputation. Pauline, I do need you to come up the front, and probably to that chair over there. Whether you're comfortable sitting down with the mic or with a handheld mic, either way, please. And you are, a deputation in relation to weed spraying at the Tailem Bend Cemetery. You can sit down if you want to. You don't have to stand up.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thanks very much.
Keep to speak to the mic.
Okay. Mayor Paul, CEO Bridget, councillors and staff, thank you for allowing me to speak today. The item is about spraying weeds in the Tailem Bend Cemetery. I would like to suggest a volunteer to do this job whenever it is required. My concern and wonder is if council would pay for the licence of this volunteer to have a spraying licence. He did have one, but it's expired. Also, council to supply poison, the spray. The volunteer in question has just come back to join us again after losing his wife and very happy to do this job. He is a very responsible worker, and the nice thing is he's younger than any of the rest of us up there, and he will be around for some time. So I'm not just trying to pick a suggestion to last 6 months. I think he's got 10 years into him, so I'm very happy about that. Anyhow, and he used to work for the council once. This would make us happy to get the cemetery weed free again. And as soon as the green pops up, it can be attended to straight away. I feel this would help council out. It's one area you won't have to look after. And it's important that this area is always immaculate for the respect of our loved ones. And we're not achieving that quite how I'd like it at this point. And the reason for this idea is we don't seem to get it right, because we still had weeds at Christmas, which is disappointing. And I don't like to accept that. Anyhow, I hope you can give this idea some serious thought, because it will just make things better. We can keep it on a level. This person will be very conscientious. And as I said, one less worry for you people, the council. And I hope you can give serious thought, and thank you for your attention.
So thank you very much, Pauline, and acknowledge the work that your committee and you have done over a long time and in that cemetery. And it was, I think I can remember 15, 20 years ago, our cemeteries were particularly unloved. Your committee, and in particular committee at Menengi, if I remember correctly, have done a lot of work, and I think our cemeteries are better, but they're never perfect. I accept there'll always be that. Councillors, you got any questions to Pauline? Councillor Bland?
Pauline, do you have any idea how often you think the weed spraying, I'll say hours per week, might be required to get it to a satisfactory space, I guess, from your perspective?
Well, I sort of probably find it a bit hard to say weekly, but spraying the cemetery, it has to be a cycle. There's certain times, certain weeds, and we need to have the right spray. And I know all the difficulties in getting the right spray for some of the modern weeds now. But if we could have this gentleman do it, I know the job will get done properly. Often areas get missed, and the weeds get too high before they actually get sprayed. Weeds need to be like this if you want to really get on top of them, and then it doesn't need so much weeding. But when they get this high, we have to manually pull them out. It's a big job, and most of us, I'm just under 80, but the rest are all over 80. And it's 20 years now since we've been doing this, and I would just like to get this sorted, because I feel I'm just so often disappointed in what's going on. And
Okay.
I think we can rectify it.
So we'll take the challenge or the question around, can a volunteer do that work in a cemetery, back to our executive level.
The Mayor, we will, through the director, work with you, Pauline, to just see
Yes.
what's possible and how that might work.
Yes, I
Possible.
want.
Possible, I think. Is it councillors? Any other councillors got any questions for
Just
Pauline? Lisa, councillor Roundtree?
Just a procedural one is, does it help council if a motion was moved for you to look at this? Doesn't make any difference?
Not out of a deputation anyway.
Okay.
Anyone else? Councillor Qualman?
Thank you. Just a comment then.
Didn't know you're near 80, but anyway.
I just want to thank Pauline and her crew, and it's good to hear that the CEO will take some procedure to look in, and that we all should be working with our volunteers and we can do it the legit way, and which no doubt our CEO is quite capable of. Yeah, it'd be good to help keep up our cemeteries in a good
Mhm.
state.
Yes,
Mm.
thank you.
Anyone else? Being no one else, Pauline, thank you very much for your time. this
That's
evening.
okay.
You
Thank
did it
you.
beautifully. Thank you.
And I'll hear from you, hopefully. Thank you.
No worries. Ashley, no public question time on the paper sheet up there, is there? That's the item. We're up to item 9, which is public question time. Councillors, just while I'm on this, some people have requested that we take questions for public question time by electronically or emailing me. At this stage, I've declined that. Now, I think I understand why some people want to do that, but I think most of those issues can be resolved by through directly to the CEO rather than through public question time.
I have a question on that. Mr.
Certainly.
Mayor. Is that from across the district? You're starting to see that from further south around Salt Creek, Tinty,
No, no particular area.
no particular.
No particular area, but I think there's enough other methods of responding to people than through the public question time. I think we'd open ourselves up to other forces peppering us with questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Item 10, decision reports. Number 1, appointment of delegate to Jalara Homes Incorporated Board of Management. There is a recommendation. Is there a councillor Bland, are you accepting you want to do it?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am sure though that councillor O'Hara does.
I can only ask
nominate
councillor O'Hara
councillor.
whether he was whether he's walking home tonight or what the deal is, but so councillor O'Hara is happy to be a nominee. Is there anyone else who wishes to counsel?
I'm happy to second.
Are you going to
Sorry,
second
yeah.
it? Oh, that.
I wasn't putting my hand up to.
Oh, I thought you might be
No.
wanting to offer yourself that.
No.
So
no.
can I take that councillor Bland is moving and councillor Roundtree is the seconder, that council appoint councillor O'Hara to the Jalara Homes Inc. Board of Management. Is that
Yes.
the motion? And yes, the report's there, councillor O'Hara.
Could I just ask the question? What is the relevance of being on this committee now? Because it's the only one that we like this. We have a council representative on. And really they can't make any decisions on behalf of council. So they really go along as an observer, so to speak.
No, if you read the report, councillor, they go along as a member of the committee.
Yeah, but
They don't go along with
And
any
it-
imprimatur from this council. They simply
they
go
cannot
along.
make any decision on behalf of the council.
No, absolutely not. But
I'm just wondering now,
I'm just-
you know,
yeah.
things have changed. dramatically.
well, I'm sure the councillor will ask the management of the committee in due course if this is required.
Yeah, if they're happy to.
But at this stage, I'm very pleased that he's accepted the offer to fill the vacancy, because that board feels they would like a councillor as a.
Could I just ask a second question? When was the last time the council saw the minutes of Jalara?
We wouldn't need to, councillor.
Well, we have a representative on the committee and we don't see the minutes. That seems a bit.
It's not a second.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did see it when I was last on council. I was also on the Jalara board and I did bring the minutes.
Yeah, right. And so since been coming, yeah.
That's why he's such a good nominee, councillor.
Yeah,
I might even get a word in there, actually.
Bit early, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any further debate?
I'd
Councillor
like to
Bland,
make
your question or closing?
a comment in closing, and that is that Jalara, as a significant aged care provider in our district, would like to have a conduit through a councillor to the council when necessary.
That's right. Okay, you're closed.
Closed.
Thank you. Okay, councillors. Recommendations, the council appoint councillor O'Hara to the Jalara Homes Inc. Board of Management. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously, thank you. Item number 2, South Australian Country Arts Trust nomination of a representative.
A question,
Yes,
if I might, does that need to be a councillor or?
no,
Shall we go with a staff member?
there's this, if councillors don't wish to, there's probably a member of staff that would wish to.
Then I would, subject to no nominations from councillors, would move that we delegate to the CEO to discuss with staff and advisors of the representative.
Is that the appropriate, you happy with that? Or would you rather name that staff member now? No, well, I've asked the councillor and their arms are stuck down hard. I'm taking it that no councillor is particularly interested in this role, but we have got a member of staff that would be.
So through you, Mayor, we do have a member of staff who's involved with the beautiful artwork around here, and a relationship with the SA Country Arts would be beneficial to the council and the community, and that's Patsy. So we would nominate her in the absence of a councillor wanting to be nominated.
Are we happy to name Patsy as a member of staff in this motion?
I've checked with Patsy. Patsy's happy to be named.
Yeah, she's hiding behind Big Mick. No wonder I can't see her. Yep, so I'm happy for Patsy Crabb to be our nominee. Well, I'm taking that as the motion. Any councillors wish to debate that? So we'll go with option one at this stage in debate. I need a mover though. That's one of my problems. Councillor Qualman. Thank you. So Councillor O'Hara is the seconder. Any debate, councillors? You'll close. Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 3, the Dog and Cat Management Board, nomination of a representative. So in this case, that is a nomination to go forward for someone to be selected. It's not a direct.
Nominate Michael Vivian to that position.
So we can nominate him, but we don't know if he wants to do it, councillor. That's the first part.
Well, I think he's the most qualified to do it.
Yeah, so councillor, it might be just prudent to, we know who the person is, but just leave it to the CEO to seek his permission, be nominated.
When are the nominations supposed to be in by to the CEO?
21st of March, which
31st
is
of March.
31st of March. That's pretty soon.
Oh, so we could have it, we can lay on the table the next meeting.
No. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. If you really want to, councillor, but
Well, I just think that he has got the expertise that is needed on this sort of board. And he's miles in front of anyone else that I can think of.
So through you, Mayor, does that mean we should just delegate it to the CEO to just do the job and vote on it that way?
well,
If I may,
councillor Peach.
the nomination is to be accompanied by a resolution of council. Given that we do have some time, can I move that it be adjourned to the next meeting?
Lay on the table.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can move that this item be adjourned to the next ordinary meeting of council.
And in the
If
interim, we ask the CEO to explore the options.
explore the options. If that's your wish, you certainly can. If it's the 31st of March, it'll come back as an item in the first part of the next ordinary meeting. So councillor Peach moves the formal motion that this item, and we must, I'll just, something I might have learned we must nominate when we're adjourning to Ashley, if I'm looking at Ashley correctly. So the next ordinary meeting of council will be the right words. Does someone will second that? Councillor Walmer. Thank you.
The old Ray F. Mayor.
Any debate? Item be adjourned till the next meeting, ordinary meeting of council. There's no debate. You'll close, councillor Beach.
Closed.
Closed. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4, Freight and Supply Chain Strategy Consultative Committee Nomination of Representative.
I'd like to nominate Councillor
Very quick.
O'Hara for that job.
I'm happy to second.
Councillor O'Hara is a very popular day for nominations. So we're moving, I am going to take councillors Arthur as the mover and councillor Bland as the seconder. Sorry, councillor Roundtree.
I just had a question, actually.
Your question can be now.
Thank you. So my question was going to be, should this be a member of staff or should it be someone from council? Visions of
She's
maybe a staff
Up
member.
in front can be either.
So this once again is a process of going forward to the LGA, and they will choose out who they think should go forward to this. As we're probably all aware in this room, councillor O'Hara has extensive industry background in this area, and I would have thought he would fit the bill very well, but it's not up to us. This is just a process of going forward like one of the other two of the others we've seen. Yeah, and that's right. They're not only officers, they are councillors in the scenario, so.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have actually been on this committee before as a representative for the Livestock Transport Association.
Excellent.
Which is where I think he'll stand him in good stead when he does his bio for the process.
I think you should pay me a bit more.
Very early in the meeting, councillor. Councillor Arthur, you will close if there's no further debate. Thank you. I'll put the motion with the councillor, option one with councillor O'Hara being our nominee. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 5, intention to grant lease Tailem Bend Golf Course. There's a report there and there's a recommendation. Councillor Qualman.
Yes, I recommend, move the whole recommendation.
The recommendation, both parts, councillor Roundtree or the seconder.
Yep.
Councillor Coleman, you want to speak to it?
Oh, just thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just I like the part with community engagement regarding its intention to grant lease over this area and also community engagement period, which outlines any feedback. It's good on how it's written on the recommendation. So yes, I totally support it.
Okay, councillor Roundtree, you're happy?
Yep.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against? Councillor Arthur, you're rubbing your head.
It's only, what, 15 months ago, we actually signed this lease,
No, we did not, councillor.
which was the original 5 years.
No. Not, I can't recall it, councillor.
Through you, Mayor,
Oh,
it was signed when I first came on board about early 2020 and it had expired in 2018. I think at that time we hadn't reviewed the lease policy, and so I think it was a 5-year lease from memory, which takes it up to
2023.
23. I can't quite remember the years, but it wasn't, there was some discussion remembering about whether we would renew it, but we have left it until it's now due.
Highly appropriate we deal with it in this timeframe, councillor. Anyone else? We're closing.
Close the debate. Thank you,
So-
Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, it's the recommendation as it reads in relation to Tailem Bend Golf Course. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 6, review of delegations register.
Mr. Mayor,
You-
I'd like to move that the question be adjourned to the March meeting of council.
It's not really, is it the question, Ashley, or the same thing? You can happily do that. You're doing this as a formal motion now, councillor, or you?
I'd like, may I speak or, sorry?
Not with a formal motion, that's why I'm just going to, you perhaps want to give the fellow elected members a brief reason before I accept it as a formal motion.
I would think that I'm quite thankful this has come forward. You'll note that I have a question later, a motion later on relating to this. I believe that councillors should have time to review this fully, and noting that it's 500 and something pages, I think we need some time to do that. So that's why I would seek to defer it, to adjourn it, sorry, until.
So just we have no requirement to absolutely adopt it today within 12 months. So we've got 12 months, councillor. Since you've moved a formal motion that this question be adjourned, I think is the right words, Ashley. Is that right? And then until next meeting?
Yes. at this
This is
stage.
what, with adjournments, councillors, I do need
Sorry, I'll,
to have a time frame to it.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yep.
if I may adjourn it till the April meeting.
Certainly. Is there a second, councillors? No, I'm going to take councillor Roundtree this time.
Okay.
Sorry, I just. Yeah, I will. So councillor, that's a formal motion, so I've simply got to take it, councillor.
I have a question through you,
You
Mr.
can't
Mayor.
withdraw a formal motion. Very simple as
Was
that.
for a slight amendment
No,
asking.
No,
the
not with a
councillor.
formal motion, you can't do anything. I'm going to put the motion that
Asking
is
for an
adjourned till the, this,
Discussion.
no, not with a formal motion. I'm going to put the motion
That's new.
that it be adjourned till the April meeting. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Sorry, formal motions, councillors, aren't open for discussion or deferment at all, the 5 formal motions. But now that we're still finishing that item, the question for you as elected members is, do you want a workshop around that item?
That's what I was going to ask councillor Peach. Would he like to add in?
I would like to, and noting the
Motion.
personal circumstances
Yeah.
and the thought around a workshop was why I actually asked to be moved to April.
Yeah, no, knew you were working on that in your head. So sorry, councillor Bland, that was the question you wanted to ask, is we could just,
Whether councillor Peach would have liked to have
Like
added
to have a
that to the
workshop,
formal
yeah.
motion. Thank you.
but yeah, I think that might be prudent given the size of how many pages, councillor?
Well, I know this is 500 something down from almost 700 of the previous, so thank you. That was a little easier getting through some of it.
Okay, so that is adjourned, that item. Number 7, I believe I'm up to, corporate risk management framework. The council endorsed the revised risk management framework version 2.0 is the recommendation. Is someone prepared to move that way? Councillor Roundtree.
And I also have a question.
Yes, let's get a seconder first. Is there a seconder for this recommendation, councillor Arthur? Councillor Roundtree, your question and speaking to the start of it, please.
So on page 30, the 4th box on the table talks about there being an incorrect statement. The Audit and Risk Committee stated that they had identified 3 key risk areas. These, they weren't described. However, the LGRS recommends the 3 risk groups of strategic, operational and project. That sentence didn't make sense to me when I read it. So could someone just explain what that means? Page 30, the 4th box.
This is around what the Audit and Risk Committee has identified as our 3 key risk areas, and for the public's benefit, we did have a workshop around risk
No,
earlier today.
sorry. So in the document, you found it?
Changes to this revision include changes was removed.
Where is it?
I think we're in the section.
Look, it's probably not that important. It just,
Well, we may have an answer.
Okay, I just couldn't understand it.
I think it was really, the left-hand side was what we had. The proposal was just to add some clarity around what those 3 risk areas were. I don't think it's any more complicated than that.
Okay,
Probably a strong word, councillor.
sorry.
Word incorrect, a strong word.
I think it mentioned an incorrect statement in there. That's why I use that word.
I think it's really more about that we had the identified 3 key risk areas. Statement was incorrect as LGR recommends the 3 risk areas. So I think when we transcribed from what the LGRS said, we just put it in general terms, when in fact they had already prescribed those 3 areas. So we have just
Okay,
now.
That makes sense.
Any other questions you got?
Yes, I do.
Anyone else? You close, councillor.
Closed.
Put the motion. It's the recommendation that council endorse the revised risk management framework version 2.0. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 8, budget review 2 for the financial year. There's a recommendation there, councillors, that council adopt the attached budget review number 2. Someone prepared to move that way?
have some questions.
You can have some questions. Has anyone else got a group of questions? I'll let you start with questions, councillor.
Okay, thank you. Under materials and others, consumables are up 600,000 and repairs and maintenance are down 710,000. In the end, the numbers balance out the same. So is that just a reallocation of expenditure between accounts?
Through you, Mayor, I'll start that off.
Yep.
Generally, when you see it structured like that, yes.
Okay. Under other expenses, it's got councillor meeting fees. This to me implied, this is what it costs us to meet. 140,000 is mostly medical council allowances, and I sort of think that name's a bit misleading to saying meeting fees rather than council.
Meeting fees and allowances you'd like to.
Well,
say.
I just think allowances need to be in there because it sounds like we have
Well, let's first of all check
extraordinary
that
big
that's what-
dinners, lunches or something.
The answer to that is yes, but we can also change the naming conventions.
I would appreciate that. I just think it's less misleading. Should I keep going?
Certainly.
Thank you. Travelling, childcare and communication expenses. This one floored me a bit because they are vastly different expenditure items. And I query why they're put together. And what have we already spent $15,000 on? Is it childcare component or the community expenses? Seems like an odd coupling of categories.
What page are you on, councillor?
I'm not on any particular page. These are just my notes from reading it. So I'm just following down. If you found the first one, if you found other expenses, keep going down. I'll see if I can find it.
It's for you, Mayor. I'm just checking, but it's on page 8 and there's audit fees, councillor meeting fees, councillor conference fees, travelling, childcare and
Yeah,
communication.
that's it.
They're all fees and charges and allowances related to councillors. And that's just a general category because it's part of the policy that says childcare is in there. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong,
The
that we
childcare
have
and
pay any of that.
communication are together.
And
That would be the expenses incurred, I'd imagine, if I could speak. As we can seek reimbursement or we're entitled to from, that'll be around our policy position on our reimbursements and the Act in some, travelling is within the Act.
And likely the admin
There's an admin
allowance that
if you
comes
remember,
into that
councillor.
as well.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's got a real problem, hasn't it? Miles, sorry, hang on a second.
And so my understanding they're paid up front.
So my next one is levies paid to governments are going down further. Levies paid to government is showing 420,000 increase. And we are altering the budget from 10,000 to 430,000. And then other expenses have gone up 420,000. Then I also noted that there's a 420,000 reduction against agency fees. Is that
Same thing.
same
It's a
thing,
yeah.
recategorizing?
A reasonable, I'm going to ask the CEO to leave that down because that's really getting to me. I'm sure people out there might find that frustrating as well.
I thought it was going to make music.
I don't, no, it's not music. I would imagine that maybe the NRM levy being reallocated in a different form. Am I going, Miles? About that figure,
Yep, that sounds
unfortunately,
right.
rightly or wrongly?
Thank you. Next one was utility expenses. Our electricity costs have gone up over 80%. And is this happening to all councils? And is our solar efforts having any impact at all?
Miles,
Through your worship, I wouldn't say 80%. So again, the figures here probably don't tell the true story. So we're looking probably at a 30 to a 40% increase. And what I'll say there is that the solar is probably stopping that from being a 60% increase. So the market, the contracts that were entered into just before the Christmas break were anything from 60%, generally a 60% increase. In some cases, the market wasn't even providing a contract because there was too much uncertainty. But the solar is dampening that effect, but all the same, everyone's wearing higher energy bills if they're entering into a 3-year contract.
So through, I mean, where other councils are seeing this as well.
Every other council seeing it, the story is exactly the same. There was an attempt to look at a one-year contract just in case they market improved, but the suppliers went entering into 1 year. You can understand they're risk averse as well. So 3 was the shortest term. And ultimately, the way to deal with this is either more solar or some sort of view to getting more control of the situation by becoming closer to the generators through maybe a power purchase agreement. So that's something that we'll be working on over the next 12 to 18 months with a number of other councils.
Because thank you. The next couple of questions I probably know the answer to, but I just want to ask them anyway. So under capital expenditure, roads and associated assets, we've only spent 46,000, it looks like, out of the 1.2 million allocated. Is that because bills haven't come in, or it's not that we're not going to spend it?
Through you, Mayor, generally our capital is back-end loaded just because of the seasons and how things are done.
Yep.
That may be a feature of some of that, but Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
Rubble allocations hadn't been made, so no rubble costs are in those numbers.
And then it would be the same for the next one, 765,000 out of 3.7 million allocated to unsealed road sheeting. Same thing. And then I think you answered this question today. When will council begin to renew the playgrounds, and which ones are scheduled for renewal at 55,000? Well, that's the one we talked about this morning at Meningie. Okay, that's all my questions.
Any other councillors got any questions? Does someone move the recommendation, please? Councillor Roundtree's moving. There's a seconder. Councillor Bland. You want to speak any more, Councillor Roundtree?
No, I've said enough.
You've had questions. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? There being none, you'll close.
Please.
So councillors, I'll put the motion, which is the recommendation in your agenda. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. We move to number 9, Streetscape Project, Community Engagement, round 2. Where did number 9 go from that? Let's see you go. Councillor Roundtree, are you moving or questioning?
I just have a question to start with,
Certainly.
please. Where it says 30% master plan report, when this goes out for further community consultation, do we need to include that wording 30% master report? It sounds weird.
I'll ask the CEO.
What does it mean?
It means that that's how much is completed of the actual project. So there was the collection of data. It's just the consultant's way of saying this is where we're up to. Unless the director
Okay.
tells me otherwise, I don't see that it needs to be in there.
30% point is where we're at. The next point will be 70,
Yeah.
which will include the style guide, and then once 100% complete. It's doesn't need to be, there's no need for it. It's just the function of the stages that the project is running through.
Councillor, I'd wonder if it was not a bad thing to leave it in there to show that the process is ongoing.
Perhaps.
Because otherwise people
Correct,
will make an
yes.
assumption this is our final position.
Yeah, that's another good point.
Another way of looking at
I
it.
think you just explained, I wasn't, but it escaped me that it was a 30% master, like it seemed like it was only.
So this is
30%.
perhaps now the most important part of public consultation, to put the meat on the bone of the proposal and get the public and the ratepayers to have a good look at what was proposed and what they don't like and what they do like. So we're not sort of arguing against nothing or discussing against nothing. We've collected the information. Now we seek their review of the information as presented and then bring it to the 70% point. Councillor Bland.
I'm just playing with words. I'm just wondering whether the 30% should refer to stage 1, 30%,
Something like that would be
something
fine.
like
if
that.
that's-
Just maybe gives a better explanation to the
Stage
general
1.
public.
Just.
Yeah, so happy to do that as a part of the publicity, councillor.
Just I'll move a big motion as is.
You're moving it as it is, but certainly I'll need a seconder. Councillor Roundtree is the seconder. Councillor Arthur, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, I think we just go to public consultation. I think it'll get a few people talking about it. To be quite honest with you, I'm very disappointed in what they've put up. Some of the things that they've proposed at Canalpin are, you're going to have trucks going past the public toilets. It's the only way they can get out of the car park.
Yeah, you could read it that way, councillor, but that's the point of this is
Yeah, so that's why
just
it
to bring
goes
this
out
to
of
a head.
public consultation. We get the feedback.
We'll get the feedback.
Yep.
I'm sure.
Mr Mayor, if I may.
Councillor Peach.
I do share some concerns from councillor Arthur. I'd also note that some of the concerns expressed by councillors during workshop around this were not noted or enacted in any way, shape or form, including the fact that we've only named one of our 2 Aboriginal people groups in the document still, and that the Narrabeen people are not acknowledged in there.
Yep. We can tidy this up a bit more before we go out. This will be where we'll probably get to a more solid plan or something. Councillor Qualman.
Yeah, thank you. You're talking about, Mr Mayor, talking about solid plan. And like you said, it's ongoing. And here on page 36, I'm quite interested and imagine this will be a drop-in section. Next steps in the master planning, and then in brackets following community engagement, include developing an artistic mock-ups of like a model setup of each town or what our vision is. Is that correct?
That's a very
In
good
3D form?
looking at this, we're looking at the executive 3D sort of mock-ups, or is that in a physical sense or in an electronic sense? Or
To you, Mayor, it's illustrations. I don't think our budget stretched to 3D mock-ups, councillor.
Sorry, just the way I read it.
good question, councillor. Anyone else around this subject? I have a mover and a seconder, so councillor Arthur, you'll close.
Opposed to it.
Put the motion, it's the recommendation as read. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 10, it's the Canalpin and District Soldiers Memorial Swimming Pool and Caravan Park Committee minutes of the meeting of the 23rd of January. Councillors, someone move that way. Councillor Rountree, are you moving?
I am, and I have some questions.
Yes, is there a seconder, please? Councillor Peach. Councillor Rountree, sorry,
Thank you.
the questions are.
So they've indicated that they need the shallow and deep end wording for the pools, and I think that one is probably an urgent consideration. So I'm hoping that that will
Should
be
be picked up
taken
on the CRM process.
very quickly for them. I also want to disagree that the washing machine is not needed for the pool and the caravan park.
Councillor, what I'd suggest you do is when we get to a workshop very soon around strategic projects or budget bids, that you push it into the process then if you wish.
Well, my concerns are that it's been categorically put on the to-do list and then marked off as not happening. And I take objection to that because I don't think there's been enough consultation. And today, if I can finish, we talked about removing unsafe gym equipment and replacing a council asset and upgrading, and that's good. This was already there and it's been removed. And I think there's a real argument to have that reinstated in the pool, and to see it just marked off on the to-do list as done and not going to happen, I think was without any consultation.
Well,
it's a bit cheeky.
So what I'd ask you once again is we'll put it through a different process at this stage. There was considerable, I'm told, consultation around this at the time. So there's quite a bit of discussion to be had around this, but probably don't want that in this meeting, if you know what I mean.
But my other point I want to make is the concern around the baby change table. Now, at the football club room, they've got just a fold-out table that the parents use to change their baby on. They don't need a $2,500 change table to be installed at the club. They're actually they're now moving with, we're not going to continue to ask for it because they're being pushed down a track of having a very expensive one and they don't want it. They just needed a simple $200 fold-out one they can lay a child on rather than using a kitchen table to do it with a towel. So I think we've overcomplicated this process a bit.
To you, Mayor, I'll have to follow up on the change table question. Sorry, I don't have the background to that unless the director does.
And I would concur, if I may, with councillor Rountree, having been at that meeting, that they were certainly concerned about the extent of the costs that they'd been informed of as to its justification.
They felt there were many more things they could spend $2,500 on than a change table.
So you, Mayor, I'll follow that up.
I'll just make one point. through you, Mayor, that it is a public space and we're required to provide compliant and fittings. It's not a, I know a football club's also a private space, but they have their own insurance.
So what would be the harm
Let's
through you,
go.
Mayor, of having just a fold out one, which is perfectly acceptable?
We would need to take advice on that from a legal point of view, because if it fails and someone's child falls on the ground, we're liable.
And we'll probably just pick that up with the CEO and follow that up on you, councillor. I think, and the washing machine, I think, can be dealt with through the budget process. And anything else?
No, that's all from me.
Councillors, any other questions or against this? Receiving the minutes? Okay, you'll close, councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that's carried unanimously. Number 11, Marylands and Riverland Local Government Association, the minutes of the
I'll move that.
meeting,
Mr. Mayor.
20th of January. Councillors, councillor Arthur, I presume was the voice I heard. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidman, I'm going to
All right.
see if you
I'm too slow.
see if you'd
My
like to do it. You don't have to. Any discussion, councillors?
I have a question, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, certainly.
I note that the MRLGA president is currently experiencing a few electoral issues.
Correct.
Does that mean that you're currently standing in as president?
I'm acting president at present time. Councillor? That's the only answer.
It does answer. Do you have anything further to add on that?
No, it's another thing I need to get my mind on top of. Be quite honest, and given the flooding we had, you know, I call this 5 mayors of this our region that have, you know, all suffered north of us, and the flooding issue, and I think they've handled it very well. But the Southern Mallee Council has got more candidates now than they need, so they're going through a supplementary election process. And at Karoonda, there's a different challenge, which I understand that process is going to SACAT for quite a few people, including the Mayor of Karoonda. But yeah, at the moment, I'm acting president of the region, but I'm also a delegate to SAROC anyway. That was passed at that meeting. Councillor Bland first.
That was actually my question in relation to you being the delegate to SAROC. Would you like to just give an overview of what that actually means to this?
I would love to be able to tell you, councillor, but we have a workshop late next week, I think, Ashley, no, in a week's time, 2 weeks' time, to look at the strategic plan for SAROC. And I had a brief discussion with the president of SAROC around what all that means. There's probably 4 or 5 new members of SAROC as well. So I really couldn't tell you any more yet. I've received the terms of reference of SAROC, which was a similar document to our delegations, and better say I haven't finished reading it yet.
We'll await your.
I'll be interested in the process. We as a region have asked SAROC whether we can take a second delegate to the workshop, given that if Mayor Phillips cannot go, and we don't know that process. We're still awaiting confirmation that we can ask for a workshop, but not for the board or for SAROC. Councillor Roundtree.
So reading through the minutes, I noticed that there was a new committee established called the Land Use Planning and Development Applications Committee,
Yes.
which was for flood impacted councils, and that one of their purposes is to provide strong advocacy and speaking with one voice. When you read the rest of the vision, I guess, for the group, and it says connected, resilient, healthy, lovely words, and says things like making the best use of available resources, coordinate activities, cooperations, things that benefit. To me, they're very broad statements. What I didn't see in any of that vision, I guess, was this advocacy role. So is this group that you're a part of going to do a lot of advocacy stuff, or are we pretty much just repeating what sort of councils do anyway? Like, I guess I'm really anti-bureaucracy, and I'm also really anti-multiple layers of committees without outcomes. I want to see outcomes.
Yes. Miles has left the room. This is just when I need him, but right at the moment. There's been a push probably out of the effects of the floods in this sort of planning controls area. And there's many questions have come out of it. And we discussed that perhaps before this meeting today, some of the issues with our federal member. So this is seen as a way of engaging with the various bureaucracies. One of the principal problems that comes out of the flood is that lots of things happen quite quickly under emergency declaration. But now that's, I think, being lifted across, I think, all parts of the South Australian river councils. And there's considerable issues in the planning space, in effect. And I suppose what we're trying to do is drive a result here of working together, not each council going off on its own.
So I think that's a great idea and I applaud that. But what I don't see is, for instance, if we look at education and the buses, how come this group doesn't do more advocacy work for regional communities around schools and stuff?
I take your point. So
When it's not written in their vision statement to do
no,
it.
so it'd be fair to say that, and this is part of the strategic workshop coming up for me, at least in early first days of March, but and the board itself too. So 6 of the 8 mayors of Murraylands Riverland are new mayors, and so and 5 of them have been totally, I won't use the word submerged, but the flood's taken over their life. And so at this stage, we're just trying to work our way forward to the other things we need to deal with.
So I think your vision statement needs to change to not be so broad, and really the advocacy work that is required by this group on behalf of those councils needs to be so strong and so targeted, and not things like coordinating, projects, benefit. Like there's a lot of motherhood statements in there, which I get tired of reading in one committee after the next committee.
I understand that there'll be quite a discussion at the strategic planning at the state level at SAROC around being focused.
Thank you.
I understand some people feel that we haven't been focused enough.
I would be one of those people. Thank you.
But since I haven't been in that forum yet,
I know.
let alone had, apart from this meeting, you're accepting the minutes of, chance to consolidate all this information apart from in the informal sense on last Friday and Saturday with the other mayors at the training. I'm a little, and I've been trying to make sure I've stepped up to the role of acting president with bank signatories and the like. This has been the challenge in the last few days. And I take our discussion earlier around bank closures, presented me with some challenges, getting up to speed like everyone else here.
There's so much advocacy work that needs to be done by our regions. And this group seems poised to be able to do it. Just needs to happen in their charter.
That's right. I've got a mover and a seconder yet, Ashley.
Yes.
I have. Oh, very good. Is there any further discussion, councillors? Closed. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 12, yes, certainly is. The Finance Committee minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of February. There's a recommendation there. Someone please move that way. Councillor Roundtree and Peach. Any discussion at all? Oh, we're going to put the motion. I'm leaving it to wait for you, councillor. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Item 13, Audit and Risk Committee, minutes of meeting held on the 14th of February. Can I move that way, please, the recommendation? Councillor Bland. Councillor Qualman. My arm was hidden by your body. Is there any discussion around that recommendation, those minutes, councillors? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Information reports. Number 1, Office of the Chief Executive Officers there, councillors. There's a recommendation that we receive and note the report. Does someone move that way, please? Councillor Maven, thank you. For a seconder. Councillor Roundtree. Is there any questions, councillors? Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you. I think it's under financial reporting. It's the 8th thing, externally funded projects update. I'm just wondering if there's any update on the high risk intersections projects.
Through you, Mayor, short answer is no, councillor. So we are getting less confident with that line of funding as the time progresses. We've tried twice now, and I think there's another round opening. We're not too sure whether we'll put another one in or not. We're still debating that.
I have just a couple more about the meetings attended on the 9th of January with Dick, the Princess Highway update. It's under meetings attended.
Sorry, councillor, what was the date?
9th of January.
That was really just part of the flood activity, letting us know what they might be doing. There was nothing more to that at all.
The one on the 27th of January.
Hang on, just the director's got a view on this.
Through you, Mayor, we also discussed the project work on Princess Highway south of Menengi, the overtaking lane work that was currently underway. Initially, we were hoping that it would be more about the corridor study between the Swanport Bridge and that wasn't what the meeting was about. It was more about the operational side.
That was my hope too. So the next one was the 27th of January, the meeting with the new CEO of Motorsport.
You, Mayor?
You and us, or you can have that one.
That was really just a meet and greet so that I could meet him. I knew that he'd been appointed just before Christmas. It was really just to say congratulations on the job and then to work out how we might work together into the future. So it was really just that meet and greet type of conversation. And now we undertook to meet probably once every 6 months. There was a couple of things that prompted it this time around. One was around a request that we had to participate next year in the Tour Down Under, which we get every year, and which really is not something that as a council we generally would do because of the costs involved and the amount of activity. But I thought it may be interesting to know if the Bend had something planned that coincided with it, would there be some synergy there that might make it a little bit more attractive? At that time, he was unaware of that request and it's now passed. So it's really a conversation for another day. But I was just trying to look for opportunities where if the Bend's doing something, is there synergy? What else we might be able to do together? And he was very open to that type of discussion. The man's name is Andrew McDonald. Alistair McDonald.
Thank you. And my last question, sorry, I'm still in, sorry, flood recovery housing. So 31st of January, so you've got flood recovering housing roundtable with the Honourable Nick Champion.
That was another, again, looking at the housing from two aspects. One was about the amount of accommodation that was offered by the state government around the flooding events and what the actual take up was, which wasn't as high as they thought it would be. It touched a little bit on the planning side of it, which I think Councillor Maidment made a comment about before, about planning and people building on what is known floodplains. And it was really just a broad discussion to collect the issues of the impacted councils across the district. There is no intention, as I understand it, to repeat it, but it may be one of those things that pop up again with Alex Zimmerman as the recovery person.
Councillor Bland.
I have a question, and it really relates to the public amenities at Pangaroo. I've had some concern voiced around the toilets there. Look, my question is it on the council contracts for cleaning? And if so, how often? I don't remember seeing.
Through you, Mayor, I will chip in here, Director. I might have taken on notice, but my understanding was that up until this point, the volunteers had been cleaning the toilets and so I've just sought some information from staff just to see whether it should go onto the public toilet list or whether the volunteers are still happy to proceed with it. I suspect that it should be our responsibility more formally than it is at the moment.
Councillor Page,
Mr. Smith, through you, the mobile phone towers at Colbatch and Narung, have we got any updates on that at all?
Through you, Mayor, I'll throw to the woman at the back of the table who is the guru on all things to do with
Tracy,
this.
can you come forward to the?
Now, she has been on holidays, and our last conversation with Telstra, while Tracy's coming up, indicated that they were still looking for a site at Narung. Now, that was just before Christmas, so things may have changed over there, but I haven't received any update. No,
I've nothing to add to that.
no. So, no, we haven't.
I had, can I say, I think may have been definitely discussions around a site, and I did refer them to talk to Mile, our director.
So through you, Mayor, yes, there was definitely discussions
Search.
with possible interested parties, but at that time we met with Telstra,
not
they
confirmed.
hadn't landed on any, and we haven't heard since. And I suspect Christmas might have got in the road a little bit.
Through you, could we seek to follow that up with
We can,
Yeah.
probably need to keep working with them. Make sure it happens.
Through you, it's very, very important. Area out there for some reason has just dropped completely.
Through you, Mayor, the funding is secure, the milestones are secure, Telstra's on board. So we can just find out where they're up to. They have been structuring the meetings up until this point to give us an update when they had one. But we're more than happy to go back to them.
Anything else in regards to the information document or report, councillor Bland?
Just an update on the Meningie boat ramp jetty, the project in relation to in conjunction with the Meningie progress. Where's that at? I notice it's down here for 22, 23, and now the water's dropped. Dropping.
Through you, Mayor, I'm just checking. There's a director nodding to say yes, that's the case.
Yep, through you, Mayor. Prefabrication work has been done off site. The contractor just waiting to wait for the water to drop. As you can appreciate, there's a significant amount of jetty repair work that is required. So the focus will be not for us on all councils repairing existing jetties before constructing or upgrading new ones.
It may be a little while off yet. Thank you. Sorry, can I just ask a follow-up question on that, Mr. Mayor? So does that affect over the financial year? Not at all. Beautiful.
Is not. Councillor
Thank
Peach?
you.
Mr. Mayor, through you, under the ALAP report, I note that the salinity impact on water security project is coming towards its close. Given that update on that potentially.
Through you, Mayor, did you hear that, Tracy?
Don't touch it.
Back to front.
Now you're in gear, I think.
Yes, Graham Gates has been working on 3 fact sheets, which he has now completed, and they've been approved by Limestone Coast Landscape Board for the delivery of that project. So we're just in the process of getting that loaded on the council website, and we'll do some media around that once it's all approved and online.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I don't believe I put the motion yet, have I, Ashley? No. CEO's report. I think we've got their councillors. So I'm going to put motion that council receive and note the report. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Move to number 2 is corporate and communities. Information report. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Maidment, thank you. There a seconder, councillor Bland. Is there any questions? Councillor Roundtree.
Like a broken record, sorry. So I'm focusing here on the section 41 to-do list. And I would like to see that the request for a washing machine be taken off, completed. So we'll have a motion about this later. So I think it needs to come out as of the completed section. I'm also wondering if it's possible, and this may be a question for the next meeting, but there are a lot of small items listed in the to-do list, like they're like little things that could be done. And I'm wondering if we can get an idea of what they might cost. For instance, The Taylor Bend Town Hall Committee has been looking at bar stools or wanting bar stools for about 12 months, and I can't imagine they'd cost more than a couple of $100s to get them 2 bar stools. And I worry that the Section 41 committee to-do list could become a bit of a graveyard for items that are really needed by the people that we call our volunteers. And I think they look after our council assets, and yet I feel that we neglect some of the basic things that they want to make their jobs a bit easier. And those bar stools were the ones that just jumped out at me. And I think this is an area where, when we were discussing it today, that we're sort of lacking a little bit, that I feel that some of these items that aren't expensive could be dealt with much quicker than what they currently are. They seem to just sit there for a long time. And I'm wondering why and how we fix that.
There's probably a couple of things we could do. One is that some budget items, for example, the washing machine, and just for background, when the project was first started a couple of years ago, that washing machine wasn't on the agenda for discussion, and it has never come up since into this set of minutes. So we were surprised that it come up in this set of minutes. We went back looking. Because of the cost of that, I would concur with the mayor's suggestion that it becomes a budget item, because a coin-operated washing machine is going to be in the vicinity of $7,000. And it hadn't been operating for about 12 months before I started here. So that was about 4 years now. There's been no washing machine there. I might
feel
be
that
out
was
by a
because
little
it was
time.
damaged
but
though,
yeah.
and there was ongoing issues with it. I don't think the community ever wanted to see it go, but they were told that it just won't be replaced. So it came off their agenda to think about it.
But that was 3 years ago, councillor.
Yes.
But that's okay. We'll put it on as a budget item for consideration in the chamber. With the smaller items, we'll come back to you with some budget around them, and maybe we bring a report to council. Maybe the easiest way to do it is if it's a request that's under, say, $2,000, we look at it as just part of operational. If it's and I made $2,000 up, but if it's something over $2,000, we bring it back as a report to council to approve the expenditure.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think that washing machine's been working for about 6 years. It did for probably 6 months work for nothing. No one had to put anything in it, but it was always before that was, like it was getting about $5 a week if we were lucky out
Get
of
a
it.
different, through you, Mayor, just get a different
Yeah,
response
and
from
I
the
know,
community on
but,
it.
councils are not there to provide every amenity for everybody. And like I think the original reason was just the cost of it was just astronomical,
We're here to
So that's
pursue
what
you,
was
Mayor, to provide
decided.
service.
not to be replaced.
Right. I think the path forward to that is through a budget process. Other questions, councillor?
Could I ask one question regarding the canal people? Is they to stay up and going yet?
So you,
It's pay for stay, sorry.
are you talking
Tap
about the
and go.
FPOS?
A credit card whacking where you have to pay for your electricity and all those things.
It's working. It's up and running. Why don't you give it a test run?
It is going.
It's working.
Yes,
Yeah.
because
Electric car there,
resident,
councillor.
but nothing is left. And he said he'd left.
What we think might be happening now, councillors, is that Lake Indawara, the RV camping ground there, is very crowded. So we suspect on the grapevine now already, people are moving somewhere else.
I don't know, it's 25 there in the morning.
Should we make them?
Yeah, councillor Peach, I'm just pondering us, it's paid for use.
I note that there's been 47 inquiries regarding residential bins. Is that up? My recollection is it's up, but I haven't had a chance to cross-reference. Is that increased to the last?
Are you on corporate and community or next one?
That's next.
Sorry, I might have skipped, have I?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, well,
In customer service.
in customer service, where did you find?
Corporate, I mean.
Matt, you want to have a crack at that?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, they're not all questions about new bins, changing routes. So you'll see in the stats in the infrastructure document what the issues with regards to the contract are, but these could be any general bin inquiries. It could be people staying at a B&B or an Airbnb and asking what days have been. That would go down as a bin inquiry.
Okay. Anything else in relation to see corporate and communities report? councillors? Okay, councillor Maybert will close. Put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Peach, you're going to vote against it, are you? Oh, I am. Those against is you. So it's not carried unanimously. All councillors except councillor Peach voting against the report. But it's carried. Okay, number 3 is fine. Infrastructure and assets information report. Someone prepared to move that way. Councillor Qualman, you want to move and ask a question, I reckon?
Yes, I do, please.
Righto. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maben, thank you. Councillor Qualman, your question.
Thank you. Page 81, the 5th paragraph down. A number of trees across the district has been assessed by the council arborist, and the assessment identify hazardous trees. Okay. I was just wondering and asked a question. In the last year or so on Railway Terrace, the residential end of Railway Terrace from Greenwich Road to 13th Street, we've been having trouble with extra high vehicles going down there and pulling down the landlines and subsequently cutting off the NBN service. And when the contractors come along to repair it, they're complaining about it because the landlines are half embedded in the council trees on the footpath and blaming council for making the lines down lower than what they should be. Do we or are we assessing regarding our trees with utility wires? Please.
Question,
Through you,
councillor.
Through you, Mayor, that is an SAPN requirement. We are unable and will not go near a power line with a or instruct a contractor to do that other than an SAPN contractor.
Yeah, well, this is not a power line, this is a landline.
A utility, we will not go near. It's unsafe for a council staff member to do that work.
So it'd have to be a contractor.
Your question, I think,
Through
councillor,
SAPN or Telstra.
is if a telecommunications company feels that we should cut the trees to make their line more compliant. I think that's the line.
Through you, Mayor, the telecommunication company or SAPN will do it without question and without asking council. They'll
Right.
just go and do it.
They have the right and the privilege of doing that. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, we just had the community centre, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
and they've lost their NBM too. And I wanted to answer the question now. You've been providing me that information and I can relay that on.
The
Thank
way
you.
I'd interpret that is if the telecommunications company, whichever one, wished to stop having their wire pulled down because they felt it was being pulled down by a tree, they would go and trim the tree without recourse to us at all, or even advice.
All right. Thank you.
Councillor Roundtree.
With the patrol grading list, is it possible to have the town included next to the name of the road? So I
The
probably know
locality councillor or
locality, yeah, whatever, just so we know like where some of these roads are, because I don't know where they all are, but I'm interested.
it's probably a broad question. Were you not issued with a big map 4 years ago of all our roads?
Yes, and the writing is tiny and you can't read it.
And the 3 councillors might.
And also,
have
where
that
do you know
say
to
that.
even start looking? You can't zoom in, where do you start looking?
I don't know. I'm looking at the CEO.
I use Google Earth, but it would staff to maybe just put the town in.
We'll go across 2 localities, councillor.
It could go through you, Mayor. There's probably no reason why we can't put the locality. We tried to remove from the information docs and the reports things that related to either like wards or localities when the council dropped the ward system. So it was an attempt to have a district-wide approach. But I can understand that knowing where the roads are is probably useful.
As we're learning.
We could reissue that map. Matt, I'm looking at you again in probably bigger font, but
I don't particularly want the map because I'm not going to have it sitting on my desk. What I would like is just to have the town listed. I don't think it makes any difference. I mean, you can go on Google Earth and find it. It would just save me time if it was just listed there.
Through you, Mayor, that was the intent, is to remove the reference to wards away. And I think by adding the name or isolating staff, which is the intent of taking it away, we just won't put it in as in the 285 total won't be split into the 3 specific areas.
That's no problems. Just like Bernier Road, I know where that is, but I have no idea where Beulah Park Road is. Just would like to know. Where is it?
we'll add that, councillor.
Anything else?
Mr. Smith, through you, if I may make a comment. Note that maintenance was completed at the Tintinara Disc Golf Course in preparation for an upcoming event that was incredibly well attended and brought a number of people to the town. So I'd just like to pass comment on that.
It was
And-
cheap.
and from what I hear was-
No power bill.
And from what I hear was very, people were very happy with how it went. So
Very good. Councillor Bland and then Councillor Coleman.
At point 3, water and CWMS operations, just some clarification on the paragraph in relation to works on council CWMS infrastructure is often hindered by unauthorised or non-compliant construction. How often is that really, is that a considerable problem? What are we actually referring to and at whose cost?
I'm looking at the director here about the frequency.
Sorry.
Page 84.
Point 3, third paragraph.
Through you, Mayor, what happens often in CDMS and stormwater installations that run at the back of properties that are older properties, let's say, they're potentially not covered by an easement. So people unknowingly, some unknowingly and some knowingly, build a shed or put a rainwater tank over the top of a CWMS line, which prevents us getting in and doing access. Most often than not, it doesn't cause any significant issue, provided that it's not over something like one of the septic tanks or a connection point or something along those lines. Generally, it's pretty inert, but it does pose a risk if we can't access to do maintenance. And if that construction actually does cause a failure in the infrastructure.
So my question would be if I've put a, use me, but I haven't done this, but if I put a shed over top and create a problem, and then there's damage to my shed, who's responsible?
The owner of the shed.
Okay, so we have no liability
No.
if somebody has inadvertently caused a
If
problem.
if there's a registered easement and they build a shed, by rights, we could ask them to remove the shed to get in at their cost to construct or improve or rectify the infrastructure damage.
Okay.
If we can get away with not doing that and fixing it without having to dig up infrastructure, and there's so many new technologies now that enable you to do that without having to excavate, that's the approach we would take. But yeah, it's basically just saying as part of the report that this is a problem, that's something we're looking to address. In some circumstances, we don't have easements over some of our infrastructure from a historical point of view, and it would be going down the track of negotiating with landowners to get a registered easement over that infrastructure, provided that there's room to get that easement. Some people may already have sheds in that location, and therefore getting an easement over that would be an unrealistic, I guess, course of action.
Thank you.
Anything else, councillors? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 87, damaged bins reporting has increased, which has been addressed with the contractors. Now, as I get around Tarlan Bend a bit, I've been noticing people complaining to me about additional bins with splits and scratches in them, and I have reported this earlier on. I would hope council is doing something about it, because it seems to me maybe the grab's got too much pressure on it, because some of the bins, I've been told by 2 or 3 residents, after they've gone to bring them in after the truck's gone past, are still half full. So we're addressing and getting onto our contractor, are we, about these issues, please?
Yep, through you, Mayor, we are. They have investigated their grab and are looking at some of the issues that they're having, and it's not isolated to us, but they're also having an issue with the age of bins. And our bins in particular, our red lin bins or general waste bins, some are extremely old, older than my children. So we are looking at, and he's 16. So we're actually looking at options to potentially look at a bin replacement program. Obviously, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge to do that. That can cost a reasonable amount of money to do, but it is something that councils need to look at doing as part of their renewal program in their waste collection services.
So councillors, it'd be useful to get some more, I suppose, anecdotal. Is it small bin, the 140 red lid, generally that's failing over the yellow lidded bin, and the green lidded bin was issued considerable years later. I'd be interested to know
Yes. that's-
anecdotally what that is. I don't, but the complaints process will probably do
Through me,
that too.
the information provided by the contractor is that, excuse me, a high majority of the bins that are being reported damage are the red lid bins, red lid bins.
Addressable bin.
Yep.
A bit more work's probably being done, councillor, around, what's the process of, replacing those, having those bins replaced, I suppose, in
Yes.
the next few months. There's a bit of work, I think, director's doing on that. Yep.
Through you, Mayor, and through the, in talking with the contractor last Thursday, they are aware of the issues, and to their credit, they are working with us and other councils that are involved in this process to providing the best that they can. They have had some teething problems with the changeover from the previous contractor, but they are working towards improving their systems, improving their processes. From a collection point of view and from a technology and reporting point of view, I feel from a council administration point of view that they're doing a great job. There is some teething issues as has been reported, but they are working with us to improve.
Councillor Bland.
Just to follow up on your anecdotal evidence, I've got one of those split bins, but my investigation of the bin is basically it is the original bin. It is split on the corner as you go down the side at the back. I did decide whether or not yet I will ask for that to be replaced, particularly if there's a program going to be in it and if there's going to be an added cost to council in the short term.
That'll be the subject of the report, councillor.
So I guess my question is on what sort of, if we're talking about a long time frame or a short time frame in this, and I think there is no reason why I need to replace it. My bin isn't going to cause a health issue.
So this will be the
So
challenges
leave it
for
alone.
the report, councillor, because the reality is the red lidded bin is the property owners. That's how they were initially issued. Perhaps I'm the only councillor who was around then.
No, I think I might have been around.
You're not that old. And so
actually, I'm
that's a
not.
sort of a challenge in how if we were to start to say we need to change them, how that's handled. That's why the directors need to do an interesting report.
Through you, Mayor, if your bin's cracked now, I would suggest to get a new one.
Hmm.
It will be a
I
while.
looked at the paperwork and thought, I'm not that rushed.
No, so Mr. Mayor, I had one of the split bins and they took a fortnight to, from when I reported it, missing the next week. With it, the next week they bought the new one, so.
I presume they bring the new bins or the
That was
replacement
after
on
I
the
put a
truck
new
the next
lid
week.
on.
Is that the process? So, you sometimes get lucky or unlucky, councillor.
I put a new lid on it and then they split it.
Yeah. Can't be. World's not perfect. Anyone else? There's been nothing. There is a mover and a seconder. Everyone else is happy. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. All right, number 12. Where have we gone for 12? Questions with notice. Councillor Rountree, there's a question with notice at number 12. Can I find it? You've seen the answer there, councillor.
I have.
I understand we now have a name of someone or someone to speak to in ARTC.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I have been in conversation by email and phone with ARTC, both their property officer and Enviroline, which is their, track maintenance area. The land tenure of the railway land in Tail and Bend is fairly complex. Council have responsibility of some, ART have some responsibility, and other companies have also areas of responsibility. Council has a challenge that we're unable to work within 15 metres of the railway corridor or within the railway line, the active line. There are some lines that are active, some lines that are not active, and some lines that we're not sure if they're active or not. So we have to be very careful about where we work. However, I've spoken to ARTC property officer, and we're arranging to meet on site and have basically scope out what we can and can't do. They have a maintenance program, which is basically annually. Whether that's enough, I don't know. Unfortunately, we have no control, similar to DIT, about what they do. So ultimately, the work to address the ongoing maintenance and amenity of the railway land in Tail and Bend is something that might take a little while to come to a landing point. But I think at least now we have a contact and we've got some response.
So thank you for that update. You've probably answered a couple of questions because they're going to be what's next. But I guess this is an ongoing issue that this council faces, is going to continue to face. And so we need to look at ways we can force their hand. And I don't know what that looks like, but I think just accepting it. I mean, I'm wondering whether it's something like if we do it, can we get reimbursed for it, abiding by all those rules or something like that? But we live in this town and the people get pretty upset about the condition of it, and we're copying the blame. Like they believe this is all council's fault. So I just wish I knew what other options we might have to try and fix this.
For you, ma'am? I would love to say that if we did it, they would reimburse us, but there is nowhere in my head that precedent's ever been set.
Right.
I think Matt's discussions with them is probably the most positive response we've had to date. Up until then, we thought the only way to get their attention was to park a council truck on their railway line, to be blunt. But we have had a response, and the willingness to meet on site, I think, is a good one. And I think once we've had that discussion, if it's as reasonable as it sounds, we may be able to come to some agreement. To be frank, I don't think money will change hands, but that's probably not even what we need to do. We would just like to be able to do it safely and with their permission, if you like. So, as you say, the reputation of council is what suffers in these things. Spending our time chasing either a state department or a private commercial enterprise is resource intensive. And so if we can get an outcome from this meeting, I think it's a good one.
So through you, will you report back to us at the next meeting on this one?
Depending on when they actually meet. Yeah.
Councillor, in relation to the ARTC, I'd like to also, we would need to pursue a pedestrian crossing at Tintinara. We're working our way into a relationship with that authority.
Thank you.
It is a federal authority at the end of the day. Councillor Qualman may know more.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a federal authority, and the CEO touched a bit on what I was about to say, and so did the director, and that's mainly probably up near the station is hard to define who's on first and who's on second, and which doesn't help. And of course, we have people who have pride in the place and want to do something, but there's the regulations, there's the rules, and there's the safety aspects. And of course, you can't go into ARTC land. And it's simple as that. So if we can move down the track and, excuse the pun, and maybe get them to do it twice a year and let us relax the rules to a certain degree that we can go safely into places and just pick up rubbish and do a bit of trimming of the weeds and stuff like that, because that is a Achilles heel in the appearance to the town, is the unsightly rail corridor. Thank you.
Okay. I'll take that. The question's been
Mr.
answered.
Mayor, can I just make a comment? We're not the only one in the same position with ANR. You go down to South East at the present moment, which I was last Thursday, and there's beautiful lawn area, very much the same with Valeris grass, 3.5 foot longer with on the railway line, which is no longer used. And it probably if a fire started and followed the track, it would follow the Valeris all the way from Narracourt to Mount Gambier. And it's, they just do not do anything to fire prevention or whatever.
One of the greater challenges of
We're
this,
not the only ones.
this organisation is that the departments which make the rules often don't abide by their own rules.
Yeah.
Well, probably what,
Mr. Mayor.
yeah.
If a farmer doesn't look after his weeds and that on the side of the road, we send him a letter, don't we, to say.
The board, the NRM board does, or what do we
Yeah.
call landscape
You
board
do
now?
it or will do it, it
Yeah,
charges.
charges, yeah, I know.
So I can't see why there's any difference.
Legislation.
So what mechanism allows that to happen that isn't allowing us to do that to ARTC?
We haven't got enough time in today's meeting to discuss that, councillor. Okay. I'm going to move to 12.2 and then perhaps we'll have a short break after that. 12.2 is questions without notice, councillors. Councillor Peach,
Mayor, I have quite a few tonight. Sorry.
quite a few.
3.
Start.
Refreshing a question I asked some meetings ago regarding the Main Street damage in Tintinara from SA Water. That still hasn't been rectified and is becoming more of an issue with traffic road. I just wondered if we could potentially, I know SA Water's been under the pump, but I just wondered if we could either fix it ourselves or chase up.
Lots of bad puns, councillor.
I'm trying.
So through you, Mayor, my last resort would be that we fix it. If we set a precedent there, as I said to councillor Roundtree, we never get reimbursed for that.
Of interest, councillor, I would have thought SA Water probably the revised, I've probably said this publicly before, their bitumen repair enormously over the last 12 months. So I'm surprised that they haven't done that one. Just looking at the director.
It's been 3 or so months, I think now, and it's got a
Yeah,
pothole.
no, you'd be right, councillor.
Through you, Mayor, it's probably been as long as I've been at council, so that's 18 months.
That long.
They have repaired it once, but they have not done a great job. My only thought is that we, while doing works on Carcoma Road, often fix it ourselves if SA Water don't do it work.
Send them a bill.
That might be our best option.
Your next question?
Just before, excuse me, Mayor, but should we have that answer recorded? Did you want that recorded?
That would be good.
So do we need to move that their answer be recorded to this question without notice?
Someone will need to move that way.
I'm happy to move that way.
Is there a seconder?
Happy to move. Second.
So that is that the response is recorded, which is.
Through you,
Yeah.
Mayor, given we're making a decision on behalf of a state government body, I would caution about what is recorded before we discussed it with them.
The response will be that we're urgently pursuing the authority to rectify the situation.
Thank you. I'm happy with that. As long as an answer
Is
is
that
recorded.
what you really want?
Thank you.
Does everyone understand that? You don't want to speak to it, the mover and the seconder?
No, but I think maybe the minute taker's looking for clarification.
Not right now, we can do that later, but.
Just give them a little time. This is one of the problems with this process.
Through you, Mayor, I've written down in my notes. Council administration seek advice from SA Water regarding repairs to pavement and seal on Becker Terrace, Tintinara, adjacent to post office.
And this, the one that has been done was done by someone who'd got no idea what they just looked like. They whacked a bit of bitumen down. That's in front of the post office. And then the one he's talking about is further on,
Further
where
north.
it's half the road.
Yep.
Which is sort of in front of B Suite, if you want to. Yeah.
Just Becker Terrace in general.
It's that 20 metres, 40 metre stretch where it always it bursts regularly.
Did they replace the pipe when they had dug it out?
I think in the time I've been in Tintinara, I can recall it being dug up 6 or 7 times. In the same area.
Question.
So I've got a motion there that there's the full answer, and I think the director's given us probably the full answer that we'll put in. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Your next question, councillor.
Mr. Mayor, through you, and this is to the CEO, regarding the sexual harassment policies of council, both inward facing and outward, and triage processes in place around that.
So through you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Council does have a sexual harassment policy in place. And as you'd be aware, at the end of last year, the Commonwealth came out with policy that said that it can't be just as a reactive supportive policy, but that it has to have in place a positive position in terms of how an organisation deals with sexual harassment. We are in the process of getting legal advice about how that should be updated from a local government perspective.
If I could ask, Mr. Mayor, through you, that when that work is completed, that policy becomes easily accessible through the website. Because at the moment, there is no.
Through you, Mayor, this is a document for staff, not externally.
So, sorry, my question was two-part, both internal and external. As a public-facing organisation, I believe that we should have an external document as well. So can I request that we perhaps explore that further?
Can I take that on notice? Mayor?
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
Reflecting, councillor, on the revised, what I'll refer to as the revised Local Government Act and what might be required in that area as well, in relation to elected members or the public. Not so much an internal document.
My third question, which has been touched on through today's workshops and mentioned earlier, is around banking in the Coorong Council area. As of Friday, we cease to have any functioning banks in the council district. I'd like to know what, happy for this to be taken on notice, but I'd like to know what steps council can take to proactively try to get a bank back into the area, working in partnership with others. Yeah, I'll probably leave it at that.
So, councillor, I'm just trying to work out when questions without notice, whether we should take.
I can answer that, Mayor.
Yeah, okay.
So Tony Passon, through you, Mayor, Tony Passon today touched on that inquiry. He had already sent us that information to make a submission, so we're intending to do that. That's only been out a week or so. The second thing is, in our discussion, Councillor Peach, we talked about the Bendigo Bank. I've left a message with a colleague of mine in Queensland who is on the board of one of the Bendigo banks, just to see what we tried to trawl their website to see if there was any sort of a indication of what was their criteria in setting up a Bendigo Bank. And I've left a message for her to ring me. She hasn't returned my call. She's a deputy mayor, so she might be busy as well.
And so I think we will put a short submission in to the federal inquiry and we'll continue to work for solutions probably outside of the main four banks, to be quite honest.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Around this, sad that last Friday was the last day of the limited hours banking in Tailem. So we have no, as I said, we would refer to our traditional banks in our area at all.
Mr. Mayor, as I mentioned earlier, I'm keen to see a proactive solution. I appreciate the CEO's comments. I'd also note that I've reached out to the chairman of the Keith Bendigo Bank, who's currently overseas, but she's looking forward to having a conversation when she gets back. So.
Is that the last of your questions?
That is for now. Thank you, Mr.
I'm going to work my way around. I'm going to Councillor Quayle and then Councillor O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two, through the chair to the director of.
Always to me, councillor. I'll decide where it goes.
Oh, all right.
I did the training, councillor.
It's a bit regarding where council's at the sealing process with Wattle Street, please. That's my first question.
Brief answer about Wattle Street. The director might take that one.
Yes.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, the tender process for the Wattle Street is nearing completion. We'll make an assessment on the preferred contractor probably in the coming weeks. We would then intend to let that contract and construction can commence pending the availability of the preferred contractor. But the selection of the contractor will also, their availability will bear some weight in their selection.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, this is probably why it's taking a while, because we were originally told mid-January and now it's nearly through February, the availability of the appropriate contractor. The other question is, I received a photo on my phone regarding the other day from concerned ratepayer, the bleeding new section or new seal of Botalic Road when it wasn't a real warm day. Can someone explain what council done to rectify that?
I'm actually going to have a go at it because I did have the opportunity eventually to have a look at it, and I think it was an exit from the a property right on the top of the rise, and I'd reckon it was a dragging brake, to be quite honest. When I looked at it, that's why it looked to be bleeding to me. That's my assessment of it. I don't know if the director wants to add any more, but that's what I thought.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. We have reviewed the seal and we have spoken to the contractor who applied the seal, and they're looking at it. There's no exact science or reason why we can see now. We are doing work on Botalic Road now, as you know, and if there's anything that we can do to address that as part of the next sealing program, we will do that as well. But ultimately, the sealing contractor is under contract.
Right.
And there is a defects liability period for the works that they complete. So if their seal does fail within that defects liability period, they are required to rectify it under contract.
That was my concern. Thank you.
Councillor O'Hara.
It's through you, Mr Mayor. Just following on from councillor Peaches, Pettit Road at Meningie. I'm not sure if it's SA Water or Huron Council that have been digging up Pettit Road consistently, and it's a pretty big mess at the moment.
WMS.
It's got 3 or 4 patches, square patches have been dug out, and the bitumising that's been put back in there is very ordinary.
Your question is who's responsible when it may be fixed?
Through you, Mayor, I'm assuming, is this recent?
Well, no, it's been bitumised recently, but
I'll take that on notice, but my understanding is that the works on Pettit Road, we relayed a rising main in the 21-22 financial year, which rectified or replaced the Pettit Road that continually failed. My only explanation would be that the scarring on Pettit Road is remnants of those rectifications that we previously had done. And they're probably semi-temporary, and Pettit Road more than likely requires a reseal.
that is what you said there.
Any other questions without notice before we have a brief break? Councillor Bland.
Just 2 quick ones. One is the follow-up in relation to the banking, and your council's going to put a submission in. I'm just wondering how precise that submission is going to be. I haven't seen the terms of reference on that, and are we going to be that we need a number of banks across the Coorong, that rural areas need banks? Just where are we heading with that, given that all the small communities, you know, have an issue?
Through you, Mayor, I haven't looked at what the template is yet, but I would suspect it's probably more general terms. Once we have the template and we've had a little look at it, I'm more than happy to circulate that.
Thank you.
I suppose with submissions like this, it's more about the general statement about having no banking facilities in a district with 8,500 square kilometres.
Yeah, okay. And my other question, through you, Mr Mayor, to whom, wherever you direct it, is in relation to the exit onto Princes Highway from our lovely new 7 Mile Road and the vegetation on the right. And I know that that's sort of set underneath the native veg, I think, in that area. At this point in time, I was out there the other day and had to creep quite a way out past the lines, indicator lines on there, to be able to see.
To re-enter and turn left or right onto the Princes Highway from 7 Mile, councillor?
Yes, well, either way, left or right.
Doesn't
yes.
matter. Yeah.
But you couldn't see to the right.
I would only agree with you, councillor. You haven't got enough room to view it for the shrubs.
Correct. And I find that dangerous.
So I'll take that we will approach DIT around sightline distance off of that white line, which actually is set back a bit, I believe.
It is set back. So I applied by rule and I sat there and I thought, I've got to keep creeping out.
Yeah.
Not safe.
Director, have you got any just comment on that? Or just as
Yeah,
you've
through
been
you,
made
Mayor,
aware of
we
it?
have raised that with DIT already, and also the other question and regarding the to the left-hand side shoulder heading south and
Yeah,
providing
really.
some so I'll follow that up again with DIT. Work out what we can do, but if vegetation clearance is required for site distances, we can remove that without native veg clearance.
And in relation to the first one about the shoulder, particularly as people speed up there, the signage isn't good. It's coming up to curves. Definitely need some sort of signage to indicate the turn there if we can't get a shoulder of some kind there, or at least a pull-off space.
Through you, Mayor, I think in response to that question, Councillor Bland, I think that's not the only question I've had regarding signage on Princess Highway of late. So it might be time to go for a drive with DIT down Princess Highway, not only to look at the signage, but also the condition of the road.
Okay.
I'm still in questions without notice. I might encourage people to lodge them if they've got them, so that the written response is in the agenda. Is there anything else? I suggest we have a 10-minute break, councillors. Ashley, just refresh my mind on the process for this
Suspension.
short-term suspension of the meeting.
Short-term suspension requires 2/3 majority
Two-thirds.
agreement.
There you go. Councillor Roundtree moves, councillor Peach seconds that we have.
Move for a second.
Does it move? Just, does everyone,
Agreement.
does most people agree? Do 2/3 of people agree to a 10-minute suspension? Just to just resolve then in perhaps the old language. Thank you. I'll take that as a yes.
7:00. For me.
7:00, we're back. We're back live, I think. Thank you, Ashley. 13.1, councillor Peach, council delegations. There's a councillor, you want to move that or?
If I may pass comment before taking an action on.
Mhm.
Given the delegations list has been deferred to the April meeting, and some of what I've asked for in this motion has been addressed in that. I would like to move, Mr. Mayor, that this motion is adjourned until the May meeting of council.
Formal motion that this item be adjourned until May 2023 meeting. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree is the seconder. Everyone understands that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously for an adjournment. 13.1.2, councillor Roundtree, councillor access to the extranet system.
So through you, Mayor, I just want to change a couple of words in this motion, please. So at the end where it says as soon as possible, I'd like to just change that to a matter of priority or before 30 June 23. So just take out the words as soon as possible and just change it to a matter of priority.
So, councillor, given the process within Squiz and the local government, there's still no guarantee we can do it by this date.
Well, I guess we need to have a date in there, otherwise it's just going to continue to sit there and not get done. So I'm keen to put a date on it. Whether it can or can't be achieved, I guess is it will come up as a motion. It will be, we'll have updates on it, I guess, at future meetings.
As long as you understand that this is somewhat out of our control.
I do understand, but I still feel like I wish I had done this originally.
Okay, it's your motion.
Thank you.
Your motion, as long as we understand that it may not be possible.
I'll accept that. Yep.
You've moved that way. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bland.
Just needs the word or put between the word priority and before.
Councillor Bland, you want to speak?
No, I'm happy with that.
Anyone else wish to enter the debate? Councillor Arthur.
Yes, I'm full agreement with this. We've been sitting for, I think, maybe 3 years now, not being able to access the previous confidential items, which when it was taken over by the LGA and was always told it was going to be done, it's going to be done, and it was going to be done, but you know,
it's still going to be done.
Go back and look at stuff from that, and we was always told, you know, you can get in touch with capital. Sometimes you don't even know exactly, you know, what it was, whether it was May, June, July, or something. So
that offer remains open.
Yeah.
Get in touch with the CEO if you have an issue. The local government process is working its way through this at the moment.
So
could I just ask a question, Mr. Mayor? Is everyone in the same situation regarding it being hosted by the LGA?
Yes, my understanding is that it is an all-encompassing system.
So Squiz is the software system that LGA provided to local government. And as you know, when the first iteration of that happened, historical documents weren't uploaded. They are now doing work on the background. I have to say, from their point of view, it's not a priority either. I suppose they work on the principle that incoming councils will be looking forward and that there's probably not much from a 2014 or beyond backwards that would be relevant to a discussion today from a confidential point of view. So they have not seen it as a priority as far as I can tell.
Nonetheless, I have a motion. Any further discussion?
no, I close.
Close. The motion is just the changing in the words, I think, a matter of priority in replacement as soon as possible. Is that, I think, what we've got? Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Move to number 3, a question of backgrounds, information for questions with and motions with notice. Councillor,
So after reading the response, I have two things. I want to change some of the wording of my motion, and I also have some comments and points that I'd like to make about the advice given.
how about we try the changes first?
Okay. So I would like to change it to read that relevant explanatory text be allowed to accompany questions/motions with notice and be placed into the agenda to help inform decision making, and leave it at that. So my comments around this would be that, and I guess I'm speaking to my motion, that Regulation 9 of meeting regulations doesn't say at all that background information can't be included. And whilst the legal advice says they envisage this within the privilege of Regulation 9, it does not explicitly say that. It's more of an interpretation of what they think it should say. And I would argue that whilst the privilege to ask a question does not include the implied power to make a statement, which seems to be being confused with providing context, then it could also be argued that Regulation 9 does also not remove the ability to do this either. The advice goes on to say that as long as a motion or question does not go beyond the power of Regulation 9, then in accordance with the guiding principle at Regulation 4, a motion on notice can be accompanied by explanatory text in the notified motion. Now, this is like a play on words, explanatory text or background information, but I'm happy to use the word explanatory text because that's what they're using. It also says that this can serve to inform members with respect to the background of the proposed motion, as well as other relevant information. However, that the proposed motion should stand alone as a decision-making proposition capable of being understood, discussed and debated without a paragraph of information being replicated in the minutes as a lead in to the same. And that is a fair point. So I feel the compromise could be met with better worded motions and questions. However, categorically banning elected members from providing explanatory text is unhelpful and counterproductive. And I would say that the more information, the better. It's also sad that it costs us more money to get this advice, when I think when information is given to council members from staff, we're given background information to help inform our decisions, and I don't see the difference with elected members being able to provide the same if it helps. But I accept that the question itself should be able to stand alone without the need to have it, but we should not be categorically banned from doing so. And with that, is there a second? Probably not.
So we have an altered motion which reads that the relevant explanatory text be allowed to accompany questions or motions with notice placed within the agenda to help inform decision making. That we can do that, actually, can't we? We can vary it on the subject, even on a notice of motion.
Motion itself can be varied.
Yeah. Well, that's what in effect's happening. Councillor Roundtree's moved that. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bland, are you the seconder?
I'll second it. I'd like to hear the debate.
Okay. Councillor Roundtree, you've spoken to it. I'll take it you've spoken to it on the way
I
in.
have, yes, and I'll have more other things I can say, but I'm happy to hold it there.
Right, councillors, you can enter debate at any stage you like.
Mr Mayor, just,
You speaking for or against it, or your question?
well, it's a question really. I know you have the power to not accept a motion. Do you have the power with, from the floor in a meeting, I mean, but do you or the CEO have the power to not accept the background information here, or must it be put in there? That's my question. It's not really clear.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Peach, I'll get to your question and answer in a second.
Yep. Right.
if I may, through you, Mr Mayor, that section 9.6, and if I
Yeah.
ask may encompass that if there was a specific reason as to why not to, that power would vest with you.
Yes. So some time ago, we did have some questions on notice not put in the agenda, as you're aware, councillor, it was an interesting scenario. So my view would be, and I take the movers point on this, that we need to form our motions very carefully, or our questions. The second point is that if I felt the question, and these words are very important, are vague, irrelevant, insulting or improper, then I may take the liberty of saying that the background is one of those four, I think. What I'm probably not prepared to have is the agenda with, and I'll use the word politely if I may, commentary around a subject. It needs to be a motion or a question. And if this motion was to get up, the background would need to be concise. And I think that's what the motion says, relevant explanatory text. Be allowed to accompany the motion with notice. And obviously we've needed to look at this very carefully, because at some stage what's in the public agenda each month is actually very important. And I would want the relevant advice to be accurate. And if I felt that your preambles or your backgrounds went into areas which weren't exactly accurate, I would be just having a discussion and asking you to reframe or perhaps even disallowing if I needed to. So one of the last roles I have is to protect council's reputation or image. So I suppose I'm reading the room, and but that's the way it needs to be. We need to be able to form our questions and our motions very succinctly, as is that advice in the agenda. I have got a seconder. Yes, who else wants to enter the debate? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be supporting this motion, and you touched on some key points on keywords, and that's relevant, concise and accurate. And I trust you as the mayor that you will ensure that the background would contain that only. So we go down that track, I see no problem. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? I'm going to go to I'm looking at the second. It's unusual you Kevin spoke, councillor.
This conversation has been going for some time on and off. And again, if we stick to the key and relevant statements that are there and not misinformation, innuendo or conversation, then I think in the short term we should give it a go.
Thank you. You'll notice the word improper. That has probably got a fairly wide ambit for myself to have a discussion with you if I felt you were saying something which was improper in the background or in the motion, I might add, or the question.
I think it comes back to you, if I may, Mr Mayor, to then speak to any of us to say you believe we have misused.
See, you read it, a question whether on or without notice must be able to stand alone. Because it is a question, it's not a statement. That's the point I'm trying to get to on the questions anyway.
Absolutely, Mr Mayor, if I may, I will enter in the affirmative on this one. When considering this, I'd put my mind back to the question I asked around what I would call the fire tracks and the information I put with that. That was quite some text. It didn't end up in the agenda, didn't need to, with videos attached as well. But in terms of understanding where the question was coming from, I think 90% of what I put in that correspondence would have been completely relevant to providing perspective. And I think that we should be given the opportunity to do that. And also, particularly for sentences, if a question is concise, to enable members of the public to perhaps understand where the question is coming from without over elaborating within the question itself.
So nothing stops you as answer of asking a question with notice or a motion with notice of sending a separate email to the CEO with some more information.
Absolutely, but I think when the public's considering the questions we're asking, in the formal agenda, it would be handy to have some of that context.
Yeah.
As long as it's relevant.
So as long as we understand that the agenda is a public document.
Absolutely.
Forever, and as is the minute. Okay, who else? 2, 3. Looking at the mover to close.
Closed.
So, move councillor Roundtree, seconded councillor Bland, that the relevant explanatory text be allowed to accompany questions or motions with notice and be placed within the agenda to help inform decision making. That replaces the previous, or varies the previous motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Oh, we're moving on. Thank you. Motions without notice, councillors. Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move that the council use their discretionary funding to reinstall an existing asset, being the washing machine, to the Canalpin Pool Caravan Park precinct for the commencement of the 2023 swimming season, which is about October 23.
So, councillor, I'm going to ask you to put that forward at the next meeting as a motion with notice.
Okay.
Anything else, councillors?
Mr. Mayor, are we allowed to contest that at all or not?
But I'm sure you'll give me further advice, councillor. Councillors need, and I know there's been a bit of discussion today. Councillors need time to turn their mind to the decision, and my view is that we haven't had enough time to turn our mind to the full implications of a decision around a washing machine.
Mayor, can I also just add that there's one here I've just found for $4,600.
Well,
Upload a cash machine. I don't think it's going to be as expensive as what.
well,
People
and the other concern I had, councillor, with all due respect to your motion, was the word discretionary. I was fascinated where we
Well,
go.
I
Where we
guess
go
I'm
with that as a
referring to
precedent.
repairs and maintenance budgets.
Yeah, well,
Things like that, which is more discretionary than
Yeah.
what's actually
I know,
fixed.
but once again, I'll exercise my right to.
Fair
You're
enough.
more than happy to lodge it tonight for next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that in the future, if legal advice is provided to councillors, that the letter of instruction that went to the lawyers is accompanying that advice, please.
To councillors.
Yes, I'd note that the previous motion contained legal advice that was sought. And I would, if that occurs in the future, I would like to see a letter of instruction that goes with that for context.
Just, we need to consider this a little bit, actually.
We need to think about it, Mayor. Sorry,
Well, I'm going to ask you to do the same again, actually, to formally put it as a motion on notice. If you do that urgently, the Chief Executive Officer will probably seek some advice on the answer. The presiding member does have some discretionary power around seeking legal advice, as per a policy of this council.
Yes. Not contesting that at all, just seeking to see the letter of instruction that goes to the legal team to provide context, as I said,
To elected members, as will be your words.
to elected members, correct?
Yep. You make sure it's elected members, because I'm an elected member. But previous policy allows me to seek legal advice up to a limit, I believe, with some reporting requirements, actually. If I
Yes, so I'm not seeking to vary that in this motion,
No.
just that once it occurs.
Yep. Given that there might be some consequences, I would like you to formally move it as a motion on notice for the next meeting, please. Anyone else?
Can I follow up just with that one,
Yep.
please, Mayor? I guess what's just sparked my interest is if council spend money to go get legal advice and the question is posed to a lawyer in a particular way that evokes a particular answer, it would be handy to see that, because I feel with the question that I was raising about background information and needing to get legal advice on that, I would like to know what the question was. It was asked of the lawyers because, you know, it could have been leading the answer in a particular way. And I don't believe that, I mean, the advice we've paid for that came back actually says it can be done under Regulation 9, but there's almost this overriding things, but we don't want you to do it, and we interpret things this way. Sort of means, well, what were they asked to provide information
Well,
to come back
councillor,
with that
I'd
information?
step carefully. We're still step carefully. I think we just need some time to respond to that because
Okay.
if we are to get the correct answer sometimes, we need the legal interpretation.
Fair enough.
What I would rather do is defer for a month till I have the correct information rather than the other course, which means a precedent setting.
All right, taken.
Anyone, sorry, anything else, motions without notice, councillors? There being none. Minute action list, item 14. Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 285/21 Taliban playground fencing. Says here grant funding has been awarded for the fencing plinth and train cover and will be completed as part of the 2022-23 Capital Works program. We got a rough idea when that's going to happen, please? Thank
Well,
you.
we haven't got a rough idea. We'd have an idea, but councillor, I'll look at the director.
Through you, Mayor, I'm not aware of the date at this point in time. I'll have to get back to you on that one, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you. 04-019 potable water to Wellington East. Do we have an idea how likely Wellington East residents are to see some progress with SA Water in this regard?
So
wants to have a crack at
I'll
it.
start and then the
The
director can follow up. I'll start that again. I don't think there's anybody in the state government departments who are involved with this in any way not knowing what we want to do here. So from the Deputy Premier down, and she asked us specifically to send her more information about that. There's a couple of residents who are writing directly to the Premier that I'm aware of about this issue. And Matt has been having ongoing conversations with SA Water, which we find have become much more positive over the last couple of months. So Matt, do you just want to talk about your last meeting with them?
Yeah, through I met with SA Water a couple of times this year so far, and the discussions have been positive in terms of doing some really detailed investigation regarding the infrastructure that are in place. From there, my understanding of the process would be that to determine whether the infrastructure that's in place is suitable to convey potable water to residents, and then looking at a financial model on what costs or what upgrades are required to bring it up to a specific standard. We'd then look at potential changing or transferring of funds, however that works, who knows? And then it'd be a process of looking at the community and the charging model for potable water to the residents of Wellington East, and whether they were they wanted to have potable water and therefore be charged at a SA Water supply rate on potable supply rate. So there's still a fair bit of water to go on the bridge. It's complex, but we're further down the track than we have ever been in this space.
Well done.
That's great. Thank you.
Minute action list, councillors. There's no more. I'll move to item 15, which is confidential items. So for those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting is about to move into confidence and the live stream will stop. Those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting. So we'll stop just until that happens.